Our new console's on the way. A new union is being formed at Activision Blizzard that will be transferred over to Xbox Game Studios. And we now know where Jerry Hook from Xbox and 343 has landed. All right, guys, before we get into this, if you are new here, as I see a lot of you are, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you enjoy this video. So one of the biggest stories in battles going on at Activision Blizzard has to do with the unionization of workers, specifically the quality assurance workers. Back in June, the first ever major labor union was formed by Raven Software, by their QA workers, and it was officially recognized by Activision Blizzard. It says here the Game Workers Alliance, which is the first labor union at a major US gaming company, was formed following a vote on May 23rd. And then in a letter, Bobby Kotick said that he would enter contract talks with representatives for the 27 Raven employees at the Communication Workers of America Union. Bobby Kotick specifically saying, with the election having concluded, we will engage in good faith negotiations to enter into a collective bargaining agreement. While first labor contracts can take some time to complete, we will meet with CWA leaders at the bargaining table and work toward an agreement that supports the success of all of our employees, that further strengthens our commitment to create the industry's best, most welcoming, inclusive workplace, and enhances our ability to deliver world-class games for our players. Now, this was the first one. This kicked it all off. And now another studio within Activision Blizzard is announcing that they are going to file for unionization. And this is with the QA workers at Blizzard Entertainment's Albany studio. And this was officially announced here on Twitter by the Game Workers Alliance, the same alliance that the Raven Software employees are under. And they say here, today we announce a new union at Activision Blizzard. QA is currently an undervalued discipline in the games and software industries. We strive to foster work environments where we are respected and compensated for our essential role in the development process. We, the QA testers of Blizzard Albany, are committed to fostering an open, diverse, and equitable workplace. We demand an environment where our skills, ideals, and democratic decisions are valued and respected. To that end, we have organized with CWA Union to form our union. And this is the Communications Workers of America, one of the big groups that was initially against the purchase of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, and then later reversed that decision and wrote a letter saying that they now support the purchase of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, because Microsoft has come out and said that they are going to stay neutral on whether employees are going to decide and go ahead and form unions, and their ability to discuss what they want to do and keep their voting private as to whether they vote for or against the union. So they continue on here saying, we are created our union to empower ourselves and secure the following: competitive and fair compensation, pay transparency, better benefits, and improved healthcare coverage, address disparities in titles and compensation to accurately recognize our contributions and responsibilities, establish transparent processes and lines of communication for addressing all workplace issues, including misconduct and retaliation. And I mean, that's obviously one of the big things that has really pushed forward these unions, is having the transparency of the processes with all of the scandals that have been going on at Activision Blizzard. Continuing saying, improve the work-life balance of our workers, including establishing reasonable protocols to address demands of crunch time. I mean, crunch is something that's always talked about within the video game industry. It's something that really is in pretty much all walks of life and all walks of work, but within the video game industry, maybe because we focus on it so much and we look at the news about it, but it seems like it's always something that's huge within the news, with the big news outlets talking about crunch going on at multiple different studios. Finally, they say here, we at Blizzard Albany pride ourselves on our craft and our culture. With the union, we will finally have a seat at the table for negotiating our futures. We ask that Activision Blizzard voluntarily recognize our union and respect our right to unionize without retaliation or interference. So there you have it. That is another group of employees that are going to be forming a union, and Activision Blizzard is their choice if they want to recognize it or not, or if they're going to fight it, or whatever decision they choose to go forward with. I'm assuming they are going to recognize it because of the Raven Software Union that has now been officially recognized. And once this deal is complete with Microsoft and Xbox, they're going to be able to have their unions within Microsoft, and they're not going to interfere with any of this unionization. Again, with the Communications Workers of America, they came to that agreement that they have a labor neutrality agreement, which won't allow them to interfere with any unionization efforts once the acquisition is finalized. Now, Blizzard Albany, this is the studio that was previously Vicarious Visions that all got pushed into now just being a part of Blizzard and working on games like the upcoming Diablo 4. So this is a newer studio in terms of the naming and the stuff that they are working on. Vicarious Visions, one of my favorite studios at Activision Blizzard. When they closed that down, I was pretty sad because they have put out such great stuff, from like the Crashes, the Tony Hawks, some of my favorite IPs at Activision Blizzard. But we'll have to wait and see how this all goes down, how fast this will officially get recognized by Activision Blizzard, and what this means once the deal for Xbox is finalized. So as we move through the second year of this current generation of consoles, people are always going to be asking the question, will there be some sort of mid-generation refresh? Now, I've given my opinion on this on previous videos, and my opinion is I don't think there will be any sort of upgrade in power in terms of a mid-generation refresh specifically for the Xbox, because of just how well these consoles are already selling, the fact that they can't even meet the demand right now. And the current Xbox Series X is still a very powerful console that hasn't even been utilized yet to its full potential. I do, however, think there may be some sort of variations in terms of the sizes of the Xbox and the PlayStation 5. I mean, the Xbox Series X itself, I mean, it's still a great console in terms of its size and how tiny it is for the amount of power in there. And then you have the Xbox Series S, and I don't even really know how they would make that smaller. And then they got the PlayStation 5. I definitely think there will be a variation of that console coming down the line in the next year or so in terms of a slimmer version of it, but I don't know if there will be a more powerful version of it, simply again because they just can't meet the demand at all. The supply is not there, and why would they come out with a brand new console and make it even harder to produce these chips and make it even more expensive for them to produce these chips when they're not even currently meeting the demand right now? If they were to sell the current PS5 in its state for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I'm sure it will still sell very well. And the longer you can sell these older devices, the more profit margin you're going to have, the more money you're going to make, because everything is going to become cheaper to make. And by making that slimmer console as well, a lot of the time they do that because things are cheaper and they're able to get these consoles at a lower cost and then just make more money in the long run. But we keep seeing listings and hints and all this type of stuff about a mid-generation refresh of some sort. Previously, the last one we talked about was the TCL presentation, where they showed off that I think it was 2024 that they were going to have the mid-gen refresh for both the PS5 and the Xboxes. And a lot of people pretty much were saying that that is just them trying to sell their upcoming TVs and show that there will be hardware that can utilize the features within those upcoming TVs. And I would agree with that sentiment as well from what the TCL thing was showing off. But now we have this new AMD job listing, which is hinting at variants of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles. Now, this job listing is for a pre-silicon verification engineer for AMD, and they are looking for engineers who can work on AMD's semi-custom business units, focusing on custom SoC designs for gaming consoles. Specifically here saying, our business unit features a strong team of engineers who have design wins in all major gaming consoles. They are exceptional specialists in graphics and compute processing. The PlayStation 4 from Sony Computer Entertainment, the Xbox One from Microsoft are some examples of AMD's semi-custom solutions. Now, what I find interesting about this job posting and that there is they're referencing the PS4 and the Xbox One, but AMD has done the same thing with the PS5 and the Series consoles. So I don't know why they would use those two consoles as a reference in this job posting. But just the fact they're talking about that is definitely hinting at the fact that they need somebody to work on these SoCs for particularly consoles that are going to be upcoming in the future. In fact, it even says here they need to work on APU-based SoC level verification, which would all point to the fact that AMD is preparing APUs for future consoles. Now, does this specifically mean for Xbox and for PlayStation? You would think that they have these huge business deals in place right now that they may not even be able to handle working on a different console that is coming up, because it can't even currently meet the demand of Xbox and of PlayStation to get as many of those units out as possible. So it could really just be pointing towards the fact that they are looking at maybe the smaller 5 nanometer chip that will have the same power as that's currently within the consoles right now, but it'll just give a slimmer version of the Xbox and of the PlayStation, which I think would probably make the most sense, especially for the PS5, with the fact that it's just such a massive, huge console. It could definitely be slimmed down. We've already seen PlayStation make small, minor adjustments, not marketing these adjustments, but getting cheaper parts within the PS5. And even the huge heat sink, if you guys remember that, there was the Austin Evans video where PlayStation had put in a redesigned heat sink that looked smaller than that massive one that they showed off at the initial teardown. So all of that stuff we're going to see start leading to smaller versions of these consoles, and again, specifically the PS5. Because when you really sit back and you look at the Series X and you look at the Series S, the Series X probably could be made a tiny bit smaller in due time as things become cheaper and as they continue to work out a smaller design that will keep the console well cooled and functioning properly. But all in all, you take a look at that Series X, it really isn't that big of a console for what's inside of it compared to the PS5, which is a lower power console but significantly bigger than the Xbox Series X. So a couple of weeks ago, one of the biggest departures to come from Xbox and to come from 343 was Jerry Hook, a veteran at Xbox and at 343 and working on Halo. He's been around all the way since the original Xbox, was one of the founders of Xbox Live. So for Xbox, it was overall a big loss. And now we know why he has left Xbox, and it is because he is going to be the CEO of a brand new US-based development studio called Jar of Sparks. Now, Jar of Sparks is going to be under the Chinese tech and gaming giant NetEase, and they are going to be creating a new generation of narrative-driven action games. Now, Jerry Hook isn't the only person that's going to be there. Obviously, he's going to have a team, and he has a pretty good team here so far that we know of, as he's going to be joined by the creative director Paul Crocker, who has previously worked on the Arkham games, worked at Warner Brothers Montreal, and was also a narrative director at 343 Industries. And there's also Greg Stone, who is a producer on Doom and Halo Infinite. And then there is the gameplay director as well, who's joining them, Steve Dyke, who has previously worked as an animation director and design director for Halo SSX and the NBA Street franchises. SSX and the NBA Street games were so fun back in the day. It'd be cool to see those eventually make a comeback. But what's interesting about all three of these guys is they all have similar experience in terms of working on Halo and bringing that franchise to life for what we have today, and they're all going to be together at Jar of Spark. And here's what they say their plan is for this studio. We have built games for some of the biggest companies in gaming. Now it's time to take a shot at putting our own personal lightning in a bottle. We want to create something new, innovative, and that's a blast to play. When looking to create a new studio, the most critical part of finding the right partner was being aligned on the fundamental goals of having the freedom to take innovative risks and to put the passion of our creators first. This meant that our player experiences came before the business, which itself is a risk. And yeah, that's a huge thing there, having the player experience first over the business. Something that we are seeing not always go that way, where there's definitely the business side of video games that are coming before some of the stuff that the gamers want and that the players want in order to have the best player experience. More games as a service coming. That's obviously the way that the business is pushing. So creating these just narrative driven games, these narrative driven action games that don't have microtransactions, don't have a continued games as a service model where you're going to be stuck on this game for months and months and months, is something we're starting to see sort of shift away from, because companies want to get people into their games and they want to get people staying in their games. Finally, they say here, NetEase came to the table with a strong creator first approach. They demonstrated the same passion we have for our players in building new experiences that we believe players are looking for. Now, who knows really what any of this means, but NetEase is just a massive, massive company, and they're opening up more studios. Earlier this year, opened up a new Japanese studio that is headed by the Yakuza creator Toshihiro Nagoshi, and they're working on apparently a new Destiny game for mobile in partnership with Bungie. So it is huge, NetEase, as they are continuing to grow, now getting big names in the industry to head up their studios. Now we know where Jerry Hook is going. Honestly, I'm pretty excited to see what they come up with. These are pretty great minds within the video game industry, and I just hope that these games, when they do come out, are multi-platform. They aren't held to any exclusivity deal, so everybody gets to play them. But hey, we'll wait and see what comes out of it. Could be something good, and they just opened the studio, so probably won't be for a relatively long time before we see what's under the curtain at Jar of Sparks. That's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the Activision Blizzard union. Do you think there will be some sort of mid-generation refresh with the current generation consoles? And what are your thoughts on Jar of Sparks and Jerry Hook and the team he has there? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. I'll catch you in the next video. video.